Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Personality Yoda on Friday. Good to be with you, and exciting day today. I hope you're enjoying these different interviews, a chance to really get to know some of the different voice personalities. And today we have a wonderful lady you're going to really enjoy getting to know called Rachel Kempf. Rachel's actually quite new to our world, but she represents the Guardian Pioneer voice. So Rachel, welcome to Personality Yoda. Honored to have you. Thank you for agreeing to be my guest today.
Oh, absolutely. So excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So, Rachel, I always ask my guests to kind of give us a little bit of a background in who they are, so people know who is this amazing character. Where did you grow up? What did you do? Sports, fun, hobbies, education. Give us a little bit of the texture of the world that shaped Rachel Kempf. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Rachel. I am born and raised in a small town in southwestern Ohio called Fayetteville, Ohio. It's a one stoplight town. I graduated with 60 kids in my class.
Wow.
Very rural community. So sports weren't a big thing. Horses were a big thing in my life. From the time that I was 6, when my dad took me on my first trail ride, I became obsessed. I basically never left the barn that he took me to. I was there every weekend, every summer, and everything like that, helping clean stalls just so I could ride. And that pretty much turned into a lifelong passion for me. Worked with that barn every summer and actually helped them develop summer girls camps at the age of like 12. So I took on big responsibility at a young age with helping manage like a barn of 20 horses and girls camps 3 times a summer with up to 10 9-year-old girls at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did that up until probably about when I graduated high school. I went to college, and I have a degree in accounting. It's not necessarily that I love numbers or anything like that. It's just I'm a very type A analytical person, and how numbers fit together and everything in accounting, it just kind of really worked with how my brain is wired. So went to school for accounting here in Cincinnati, and then I got a job here at a big health care provider, kind of TriHealth. It's a big provider here in Cincinnati, working in the accounting department. So.
And that's where you are now, or?
No. So after I was there for a little bit, but I kind of had a lot of challenge with like, as soon as I got in there, I really wanted to advance as far as I could. As quick as I could.
Hard to believe, Rachel. Hard to believe that we have a driven, motivated, ambitious Guardian Pioneer. Yeah.
So, with wanting to work up quickly and being so young and new to a big corporation, I was constantly kind of told that's cool. Like, you've got great skill and everything like that, but it's going to take a few years for you to work up the ladder and stuff like that. And I just was honestly not okay with that. I knew that I had the skill and the confidence and everything to be heard and voice my opinions and help create good change in the organization. And at that point, I started looking for opportunities outside of that and creating my own business to be able to excel and use my full skill level at the time. So a year ago, exactly, actually, today, I started my own business. I first started out as a virtual assistant. That lasted about 2 weeks. I'm a great leader, but I like to have a little bit more voice, if that's the right word for me to use. So that's when I got into operations management for online business owners. Really, really liked that and enjoyed it, especially if I got into a business where they had a little bit of just everyone going everywhere, no one knowing what they're doing or what they're responsible for. I could go in, really clean that up really quick. But I then soon found myself to where I felt like something was missing. And that's when I got into EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system. I learned about that and then learned about the visionary and integrator relationship. And I found like, this is my place in this world as an integrator, to where I can take a visionary's thoughts, really condense them, share them with everyone, and get everyone moving in the right path and to the drum. And that's where I am now. And as I work with small businesses with visionaries and stuff like that and building leadership teams, I've really became passionate with building leaders of people that want to follow. And that's how I got into Giant Worldwide.
Amazing, Rachel. Thank you. I mean, for those of you who don't know about EOS, there's an amazing book called Traction. EOS are almost like brother and sister with Giant. We have a lot of relationship with them, and we've learned a lot about benefited from what they're doing. So, Rachel, that is so helpful. I mean, it doesn't take long for people as they hear story to begin to hear that this is a very, very competent, task-driven, ambitious, brilliant at bringing order, discipline, structure. Have you carried on having any fun, Rachel, while you've been busy establishing all this new world? Are you still riding your horses? What are the other things that kind of bring you life as well, that maybe outside of your working world, which I know is probably the most important thing for you? But just give us a little flavor. What do you love doing for fun?
Yeah, so my working world has kind of became a little bit of my fun world at the same time. It's hard for me personally to find rest. And when I do rest, it's more like I've learned what's really recharging for me lately is to stop and think about the future, which is something that was very difficult for me in the beginning. But now that I've been around so many visionaries and stuff like that, it's very recharging for me to think about, okay, what's from me for a year from now? What's 3 years down the road and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden I go into like planning mood and thinking about like these are all the steps to get there. But if I'm not absolutely working, I have a little Pomeranian that is basically my baby. And he actually loves going on hikes. You wouldn't imagine this little 7-pound fluff ball going on hikes, but that's what I love to do with him. And then me and my boyfriend, we like to travel when we can.
Okay. Where have you been? I guess we can't really go. Well, America's more open than the rest of us. Where would you travel if you had the choice? And if I paid for it?
Patagonia.
Isn't that a place where they make mountain wear?
Well, it's a brand, but down in like South America and Chile, Patagonia. I'm a big like outdoorsy person, so they've got a little bit of desert land, mountain land, everything there. So it's kind of a place for me. My boyfriend and I, we actually went to Africa back in November 2019, so kind of a little bit prior to the shutdown, and that was just amazing, absolutely amazing.
I love people like you. It's kind of when I listen to you, Rachel, all I can see is a picture of it. You've ever seen the film Wonder Woman? You've seen the new film Wonder Woman where they live on this island of all these incredible women that just intimidate all the men, and you just remind me of one of those. So this is just so fun. So thank you for doing that. So let's do a little bit. You kind of alluded that there was, having started, as it were, your visionary integrator work with EOS, that then Giant became on the radar as well. So tell us a little bit about how was the connection to Giant? And then what I'll always ask people to do is to go, so knowing when you really discovered, I guess through voices particularly, that I'm a guardian pioneer, some of the ahas for you of how knowing your voice has perhaps made sense or helped create some of those ahas in what we call the different circles of influence. So a bit of the Giant story, and then we'll put up the kind of the tool circles of influence and give you a chance just to talk about what that self-awareness of knowing you're a guardian pioneer has meant to some breakthroughs, some ahas in those different places. So Giant story first, then voices, Rachel.
Gotcha. Yeah. So how I got introduced to Giant was while I was starting to work as an integrator, I actually went to a job posting for Legacy 412, which is another EOS kind of implementation business. And I started working with the owner, Casey Cavell, who was actually the integrator for Mark C. Winters, who created Rocket Fuel. So he helped create the Rocket Fuel University and everything like that. And I've really been working hard with him and mentoring and everything like that. And the first thing that he had me do before I even got on the phone to interview with him was take the 5 voices test. That was the first time I ever heard of it or anything like that. But then once I started reading it, after I gave him my results, I was like, there's something here. This is very validating for me. This is really interesting. And then getting to know Casey more. Casey's actually a pioneer connector. So he actually connected me to Robin Merrill, who was one of so she's big into Giant and everything like that. And Casey just got me on the phone with her and just talking to her. She's a nurturer. So she just loved hearing my story and everything like that. And then she started walking through the exercises and teaching me about myself and my voice and stuff like that. And then after that, I was like, all right, I got to know more about this Giant worldwide. Like, this is just so validating, so educational, because I'm a huge believer in like the more information that you have on yourself, the more impact and more power that you can have in creating change and everything like that.
Well, there you go. I mean, a huge shout out as always to Robin and Chad Merrill, who've been such amazing friends of Giant, friends of Jeremy and mine for a long time, and just champions. And Robin is probably the most passionate person I know about creating transformation using this stuff. So once she's got you in her sights, it's usually resistance is futile. So that's so helpful, Rachel. So tell us a bit then. You said, okay, Guardian Pioneer actually became quite validating for you. Let's put up the circles of influence and say, come on, tell us a little bit more about what that means for you from a self-awareness point of view, than maybe in that sort of boyfriend, family, you know, where some of the ahas come from, just being aware of going, oh my goodness, that's me. That's what it's like to be on the other side of me.
Yeah. So self-wise, when I started learning about like the Guardian and Pioneer and everything like that, the Guardian was obviously what I was most having the aha moments with, and looking back at my childhood and everything like that. Like, I mean, taking on the big responsibilities when I was like 11 and 12 years old at the horse farm, I was like, you know what? I'm a 60-pound kid. Yeah, I can go clean 30 stalls if you want me to do that. If that means that I can ride, if that means that you'll give me more responsibility. And then just looking more into, once I started getting into my professional life and stuff like that, as soon as I got into an organization, I was like, okay, how can I help? What can I do? What can I change to make an impact? What can I do here to make this better and to make me feel like I'm doing a good job? So that's kind of like my big aha moments with everything internally with myself. Family-wise, I would say a big part of my childhood, there was a lot of, I guess, turmoil in my early years of my life between my mother and my father. They're divorced, and it wasn't exactly the easiest divorce. But I feel like that kind of instilled a little bit of my guardian in the sense of loyalty and protection and stuff like that, that I feel like if others are conflicted or something like that, I kind of have to swoop in and be like, hey, everything's okay. This is what we're going to do. And just stand by in like a loyal manner to anyone that is in my circle. Yeah. Do we keep going through these?
Yeah, can if you want to. I'm loving it. So,
okay,
think of the theme and maybe that visionary integrator, where even knowing, oh my goodness, you were made to be an integrator. That's kind of like almost your DNA. If somebody wants an archetype of who would be the best integrator, I go, well, I'd find a Guardian Pioneer first if it was my first choice. So you would be Exhibit A, Rachel. We'll talk more later, I guess.
Yeah, as soon as I picked up the book Rocket Fuel, I was kind of like, wow, all right, I am an integrator. True and true. And that's probably why I never felt completely in place as an accountant or even as an assistant controller, because I wasn't given that space to kind of challenge it, you know what I mean? And that's really what the role of the visionary and the integrator is. The visionary has all the swirling thoughts, the ideas, everything that they want to execute and stuff like that. But then I come in and be like, kind of bring them back down to reality and then make them put everything into a systematical order. Like, hey, like with Walt Disney and his brother. Like, Walt wanted to go and just build like, hey, let's build 100 roller coasters. Well, then his brother came in like, hey, let's finalize this first roller coaster and get all the bolts in before we start building more of them. And that's kind of what I do when I go into these organizations, is I just kind of simplify everything and then get the team in order, because it's very hard to have a team that's working in the same direction when they don't know what they're working towards or what their part is. And that's why I'm a big believer in EOS and the book traction.
Fantastic. Okay, so if I pull up another little slide here, because one of the things that people always enjoy and often send these interviews onto is when they know somebody who's wired like you. So Guardian Pioneers, there are a lot of them in the world. There's a lot of Guardian Pioneers. There's a certain about 8% of the population are Guardian Pioneers. So you'll all know them. Some of you will be in relationship with them. Some of you share a family with some of them. Some of you will be led by them. Some of you will be partnering with them. And in the end, all of us will benefit from understanding how do I liberate well someone who's wired like you, Rachel. So I always ask people to live into probably their worst nightmare, where I end up being your boss, where actually in the end you are working with me and I come to you at the beginning and say, okay, Rachel, I want to learn how to be a truly liberating influence for you. So I want to learn how to calibrate high support and high challenge as well as I possibly can, because I want to create an empowerment culture for you where you get to be the best you can be, and where I can create opportunities for you to play to your strengths, and where I'll commit to keep pushing you and helping you grow, sometimes even going beyond the things that you would find comfortable. So why don't you tell me and others around the world, what would high support and high challenge look like for you? What does that texture look like? And then I'll add hopefully a little bit of color commentary around that, or fill in some of the pieces that are there. But we're actually learning at this point how, for a Guardian Pioneer, of which you are a very, very very, very clear role model. What does high support and high challenge look like if we want to get it well and we don't have all the tools that Yoda has in terms of knowing why people behave the way they do? So come on, Rachel, give us an insight into the wonderful world of how we lead, how we befriend, how we liberate somebody like you.
I would say that the biggest way to give me support would be to give me the space to take things on head on. If you've got a challenge, give me the opportunity and the permission to try and solve that challenge for you. That would be the biggest factor for me to feel supported in that I am in my lane, so to say. So if you've got a problem, hand it over to me, give me the permission to make it work and make it better. And I'm going to excel. And also to give me the permission to kind of challenge things that are already in place that you might not see as a problem. Let me come with the facts, the resource and everything like that. It's like, hey, I understand we're doing something this way, but if we did it this way, things could be so much easier for me, the team, everyone else, and it's going to get us to our goal easier.
Cool. I love that. That's great. What about challenge? How would we bring challenge well for you?
That's a good question. I guess I could edify on the giving me your challenges to take care of.
That sounds like support, Rachel, for you. Support is going, let me trust you with my competency so you can help fix the things I can't fix on my own. So if I'm going to bring challenge to you, do you mind me bringing challenge if you know I'm for you?
If I know you're for me. Sometimes I don't take criticism the best. I take it kind of personal because I'm so devoted to my work and doing a good job and stuff like that. Sometimes when I start hearing criticism, even if it's in my best interest and stuff like that, I start shutting it out and being like, do you really know what you're talking about? Are you sure? Like, do you know that I did this, and that as well? Or that I did all of my research prior to doing this?
I always say to people who are going to challenge a Guardian Pioneer, you better get your ducks lined up in a row before you bring challenge, because in the end, this little Guardian Pioneer will want to challenge your critique if they disagree with you. So one of the things that I often have to say is, if I'm going to lead you well, I have to give you permission to challenge any challenge that I bring you, and be prepared to bring a logical, rational, reasoned argument as to why I'm bringing the opinion that I am. So I almost have to do my homework before I bring challenge to a Guardian Pioneer, because I know they'll have done their homework on what they're doing in advance of talking with me. Would that be fair?
Absolutely.
And probably as well is, don't be incompetent. Most Guardian Pioneers will struggle always to be led by anyone they deem to be incompetent. They might serve them, but actually their willingness to receive from them is greatly diminished if they don't necessarily see them as more competent in what they're doing than they are. That would never have been an issue for you, Rachel, obviously.
I don't know. I can definitely agree with that. So
if you think of the character, the thing I'll often say is, if I'm going to be a liberating leader for you, Rachel, the first thing I will often do with a character like you is, I will ask you the question is, do you know you intimidate people?
No.
So self-awareness is the ultimate gift to a Guardian Pioneer, because in the end, you will tend to measure your identity, your worth, almost always through what you achieve. So in some ways, even listening to you for the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of this interview, everyone knows here is an absolutely omnicompetent, hardworking, dedicated, passionate, committed to winning and helping the people, the person you're working with, visionary, bring their vision to reality. So everything you've done so far, you are describing somebody who loves to work and is very, very competent, very, very hardworking, and utterly dedicated to being the best you can possibly be at whatever you do. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. Yep.
So when you realize that actually you are not normal, that would be the thing that over coffee I would want you personally to understand here and go, you, Rachel, are going to intimidate most women, and to be quite honest, most men as well. So learning how to actually calibrate your competency and passion. With me as your boss, I want you to bring all of it. I'm going to give you full permission to say, Rachel, we are going to win together, and I'm giving you absolute permission to ask all the difficult questions, do your due diligence, challenge me in any way you want, and basically work as hard as you want with me. Okay, does that feel good?
Yeah.
But what I am going to say to you is, if you apply the same principles to everyone who is working with you or for you in the future, that may not be liberating for them. For the simple reason is you are wired to be a human doing. And while you're achieving and your sports and everything else, that will be fine. But you will have to get to a point, and this will be part of that challenge where I go, you're going to have to learn how to work alongside people who are nowhere near as driven as you are, who are relationship driven first, task driven second, who are human beings before they're human doings. And in a sense, that will always be one of those areas where, rather than me just using all of your amazing skills at making my vision become reality, I will always be challenging you to grow in your ability to connect with and influence and lead people who are not wired the same way as you are. So that the voices is so important, because I would say, okay, who is the nemesis voice of Rachel Kempf? I would go, okay, so we're going to deal with creative voices, the creative connector, that idealized dream, and go, the moment you can actually connect with them, learn how to lead them, learn how to empower them, learn how to get the best from each of those other voices, then what I know is your leadership, not just your task ability, goes to another level. So that would be one of the things from a challenge point of view. I'd be saying, Rachel, you're going to find it really easy to deal with guardians and pioneers. You'll tolerate connectors because they help you get things done. But actually learning how to connect with that nurture, and particularly that creative voice, who are not as driven by how do I win, will always be a growth opportunity for you and the others who are made like you. So come back to me on that one. Does that resonate?
Yeah, no, it really does resonate, because if I'm thinking about any like friends in my personal life growing up, or anyone that I've worked with, especially going into these new organizations, creatives aren't as type A as I would be. You know what I mean? I've got facts to back up why I want to do things and stuff like that. And they're just like, it is. That's how we're going to do it. And I'm sitting here with my notes like, hey, no, that doesn't work.
How good are you at resting and taking time to really recharge well?
That's always been kind of a balance for me, in all honesty, because I like to take so much on. I will let my roster, client-wise or task-wise, kind of build up through the week, and then all of a sudden I start feeling that kind of like vibration of anxiousness get up, and then that's when I realize like, oh, we need to slow down and I need to stop and recharge. And for me, the relaxing and resting and stuff like that, that's me either going out, trying to socialize in some sense, or going out to eat or something like that. Because if I am home, my resting is going to turn into working on my laptop on the couch. Sometimes to me, my brain likes to tell me like, hey, you're resting. And no, I've just moved my work to a different room.
Well, that's good you realize that, because here's the thing I'll always say to the Guardian Pioneer is, you have to be able to connect with people in what we call third gear. You actually have to be able to waste time with people where there is no obvious task achievement or objective to be fulfilled. And you have to have stories and a life that isn't defined by projects and work. Because actually then, when you come together with people, if you're not careful, you'll always surround yourself by people who are like you. So actually they don't mind talking about work all the whole time. But you will limit your influence for the future. And if I'm going to be your boss, I'm constantly thinking about, how do I help Rachel get to the next level of influence? I will be always asking you to talk to me about your life outside of work. I will ask you about the conversational pieces, the hobbies, the other interests that allow you to connect with people who are not as utterly task focused as you would be, and many of the visionaries you would work for. So you will have a tendency to live in a world which is driven by visionaries and integrators. But that's not everyone. And your ability in the future to lead others I'll always be asking you, but Rachel, you're not just a human achiever. What do you actually do when you relax? What is it you're doing for fun? What are you reading at the moment, which is not simply about how you become more competent in your work? So that's another thing I'll often give Guardian Pioneers recommended reading, much of which is not what they initially want to read, because reading novels or reading things for enjoyment versus there's another leadership book that I'm going to become more competent in how I do that. That's the way that you actually begin to become more rounded as a person and actually more approachable by the people that you intimidate or put off, because all you want to do is talk about work and achievement.
Yeah. So are you saying I need to back off my business and self-development book list?
I'm not saying you need to back off it, Rachel. I'm just saying that having a balance where actually you work on being a human being as much as you do on a human doing. So it's not a criticism. It's just simply saying I watch how they go. And if I'm always thinking, how do I help you be unbelievable? I mean, you're going to be a force of nature always. I mean, you are going to be somebody who, personally, as a visionary type character, I would go, you would be perfect. I'd love to work with you because I genuinely believe you will make any visionary better. But I'm also thinking in that kind of support challenge, how do you be more than that? And how do you not limit your influence to a particular niche and a particular group of people? So that's me almost calling you to go, there is more than the world you live in at the moment. And that will play into my other one, which is to go, and it may not be for now, Rachel, but it's definitely for the Guardian Pioneers I know, which is to go, learning how to delegate tasks to others in your team who will never do it as perfectly as you do it. So what tends to happen is you will literally go, if it's worth doing properly, I better do it. And you have an incredible capacity for work. So you will just keep doing more and more and more and more until in the end you crash. So one of the great support challenge pieces is teaching and helping a Guardian Pioneer go, even you have a limit to capacity. There will come a point where you can't do anymore. If you've only got a model of you working harder and longer and faster, you will limit what you're capable of. So the growth will be, and I'd always be working with this, okay, who are the team you're developing? Who are the people who you are raising up to do what you do? And I know it's frustrating because they'll never do it as perfectly as you do it, but that doesn't mean it's a reason not to do it. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
So if you're going to build effectively a network of integrators, because by the sound of it, you work for different visionaries rather than just be employed inside one, is that correct?
Yeah, so I work as a fractional integrator with a few clients.
So in the end, even you will run out of capacity and time.
Mm-hmm.
So the question should be now, who are the one or two people that you can be potentially investing in who could potentially work for Rachel Kempf Industries? Because I promise you, there are way more visionaries out there who need a fractional integrator. And actually, if you can be the leader of the team, not just the implementer of the execution, your long-term influence and economic success will be different. Because at the moment, however gifted you are still limited by the time, talent, treadmill. Mm-hmm. You've only got so much time. You've only got so much talent, therefore they will only pay you so much treasure. So multiplication will always be a growth opportunity because nobody will do it quite as well as you will. So put that one away and store that one on the back burner. So learning to rest, life outside work, balance reading, but inside, and I will tell you often, I am so grateful for who you are, the hard work you put in, the utter dedication to the task, the commitment to bring the absolute best you can in any given moment and every day, and just such a complementary skill set of really wanting to shape vision of the future, but to make sure that we build it in a way which is scalable and sustainable for the future. So I would affirm your competency. I would affirm that I see the dedication, the discipline, the commitment, the hard work. And then I'd be challenging you to go on the other side of the ledger. How does Rachel Kempf, the human being, grow and develop things that she can talk about in conversation which are nothing to do with her work world, knowing how challenging that will be for someone as ambitious and driven as you. Is that good?
Yeah, it sounds
would I be a good boss?
Yes. So are you hiring?
I couldn't afford you, Rachel. I think that's the honest answer. And I think that's the, I don't know what you think about proximity for visionary integrators, but in a sense, it's like, actually, I actually really like the people that I do that with to be physically present with me. Maybe that's just because I'm old and even in the digital world, but there's something about the relational interaction which happens when people are together and they're not working. I know that'll sound like an anathema, but it's for me, it's okay. If you were going to be an integrator with me, I would need to know that we got to spend time together outside of just doing work, because otherwise I will reinforce all those tendencies that actually just make you serve me rather than me actually develop you at the same time. So there we go. I wouldn't be worthy of you at the moment.
Gotcha.
So hopefully there's some wisdom in there that's actually helpful to Guardian pioneers, and just understanding. I think it's so lovely for people to hear just how much you love doing work, particularly when the people are harnessing and deploying your skills and expertise in a way that allows you to bring the force of your personality and your opinion and really getting things done. And again, for most people listening, that's really not me. But it really is you, and it really is the way Guardian pioneers function and are made. So you've been absolutely brilliant at helping pull out what is it that they bring at their best, and also how do we lead them well, or if you've got children or you've got friends or boyfriends, or so many people will be engaging with those Guardian pioneers. Will be thankful for you, Rachel, being so honest. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to go on to my question, because I know we have one here, is where I often say to people, hey, if you could have a session on the couch with Yoda, are there any specific things that you're wrestling with at the moment that you might value, maybe processing a little bit with me, and maybe hopefully me adding a little bit of wisdom into a specific scenario or context that would be valuable for you in your life at the moment? So is there anything, Rachel, that I could be helpful or help you process maybe?
Yeah. So with working with visionaries so often, sometimes I get into the space to where I feel like I get bulldozed in the sense. So how do I put myself in a position to where I can be my guardian, but not let a visionary that could be a creative or a pioneer in the sense overpower me and take away from me?
Fantastic. Okay, that's I love the way Guardians ask questions that are so succinct, so to the point, and so clear. So again, it's really saying, Steve, make me better. How do I be a better integrator in relation to visionaries? But how do you recognize that a lot of visionaries are very, very forceful personalities, very opinionated, and I think you use the word bulldozed, where sometimes visionaries almost have this ability to believe that they've already seen the future, not just the vision of the future, but how it's going to happen as well.
Kind of a persuasive sense. And bulldoze, I'm not meaning that in a
no, I love it
whatsoever. It's just kind of how I feel in the sense, just because they're so persuasive and being like, okay, you have it figured out, so I don't need to challenge this.
So here's the thing that I would say is to go, you usually have to ask good questions rather than give answers to a visionary. So the question is often to ask the question is, well, do you want to win here? Or what do you think would happen if we implemented what you just said? Or in giant language, because obviously we have a phrase that says, let the tools do the heavy lifting. And so when I hear people talk about this, one of the most common ones that hopefully Tracy put up with us is something called build the bridge. So in a sense, when you try and challenge a visionary, their default is basically to attack you back because they almost are ready for a fight, and you're daring to challenge the genius of their strategic direction and planning. So in the end, I would always say voices in the water system allows the visionary to understand what you bring at their best and where their blind spots might be. So actually, rather than saying, hey, you're very unaware, you need to get something, I would always say to you to go, this is what I've been learning. I think you may really benefit from understanding what it's like to be on the other side of a pioneer. But build the bridge is the one that I always encourage the Guardian to use and to show as often as possible and say, look, here's the reality, okay? You can see the future in a way that very few others can, and it's utterly compelling for you. But here's the reality. Unless you learn to build a bridge between the present and the future, the chances of you ever getting there are very, very limited. So what I do as an integrator, what I do as a Guardian Pioneer is I'm a specialist bridge builder. And what I love to do is I love to help not change the vision, but I love to be able to work with you to build the bridge that puts the concrete slats and ropes so that everyone can come with us. Because if you just are arrogant enough to assume that just because you can see the future, we're going to get there, then in the end, you will usually end up squandering people and money along the way. So that's one of the things I always give a visionary a visual, Rachel, because they're usually quite visual people, and go, I'm a bridge builder. You see what's on the other side of the canyon, but you're probably not the best with the attention to detail. That's my superpower. So actually helping visionaries understand their superpower combined with your superpower gives them a chance of winning. That's the way that I would, as a framing narrative, that's the way that I would often get the attention of a visionary pioneering character. I'll stop there, let you come back and ask questions on that one.
No, I love that. That makes really good sense to me, especially with bringing in the visual aspect of it, because that really does hone in with a lot of the visionaries that I work with, and just letting them understand what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. So, which is probably something that I wasn't doing at the point.
So you can get frustrated with them, but you have to speak in a language that they can access. So visuals are worth a million words. Probably the one that I love most is called Pass the Baton. So virtually every visionary is someone who loves the chaos of startup. I'll be honest, I love the fact that we're selling fresh air. I love the fact we don't have all the answers. I love the fact that we can be passionate about something. And in the beginning, everyone gives you grace for the fact it's a little bit chaotic. But unless the visionary grasps that there's a startup phase and then there has to be an establishment phase where actually things become more concrete, systemized, structured, things begin to be less chaotic because things now begin to run efficiently, well, systems get put in place, scalable things get put in place. Every visionary I know wants to get to the future in a rocket ship. And what tends to happen is, if you look at the graph at the beginning, massive growth in a short period of time. But the difference you see is you have to have your integrator in the startup phase in order for them to understand the business and the culture and the leader. But there has to be what we call a pass the baton, where actually the visionary says, for this season, I'm going to defer to the integrator, not on culture, but on actually the speed of change and the implementation of systemic processes. So again, this allows you to describe what you do in a visual form, to go, my job is to be there in the chaos of startup and help you establish and lay the foundations so that we can grow again. Because if the visionary is ill-disciplined, Rachel, and just keeps trying to drive growth up and to the right at that rate, you will eventually burn everyone out. And they will know moments when they blame everyone else apart from themselves, of course, because that's what visionaries do. But they do not understand the importance of establishment as a discipline in order that the business may, or the vision may actually become reality. So those would be two visuals that I would sit down with and I would show visionaries and say, if you want to use me well, you have to understand that I'm a bridge builder and I'm an establishment specialist, both of which help you win. But, and this is back to your question, visionary, you probably have a more dominant voice and weapon system than I have. So if you want to be a bully, if you don't want to listen, if you are convinced of the genius of your establishment skills and your bridge building skills, which they're not, by the way, you can override my input. You can ignore me and you can not include me in that decision making. I don't have a strong enough voice or position usually to force you to do the thing which you don't want to do. So in the end, visionary, it's a choice. Do you want a partnership or do you want a servant? And that's the strength of question that I would always ask. And you are strong enough to look them in the eye and go, you can choose. If you want a servant, then you can find someone else.
That's a very good point, because that's a big thing in my discovery process before we even get to even sending proposals or onboarding or anything like that. It's like I'm a strategic growth partner.
Yes.
I'm a great doer, but I'm not going to sit back and just do everything. And that's why the whole VA thing only lasted for me a few weeks.
There you go.
I didn't have that strategic aspect to be a partner.
So don't put yourself in the box of I get things done. Position yourself, whatever you said there was, I am a strategic partner that will help us win together, or I'm not playing. And here's the thing, every visionary loves people who are quite hard on them. So in the end, I would love it if somebody says, okay, I need you to understand my superpower is complementary to yours, but only if you learn how to create the environment where actually I can bring that at its best. So if you're insecure, if you're threatened by my challenge, if you are unable to do partnership well, it will be a very, very short relationship, because in the end, I'm not prepared to work for somebody who treats me like an executive assistant or a servant and doesn't treat me as a partner. I'll give you grace and I'll extend it and I will tell you, but ultimately, unless you let me be a partner and a specialist and complementary superpower giver, I'm not going to be able to do the work that I'm called to do. Now, for some of you hear that, you go, that sounds really hard, really arrogant. I go, do you know, you sometimes have to just lay it on with a big bit of 2x4 and whack the visionary and go, it's your choice. Every visionary will gather other visionaries. And that's the reason why they dream hot air and nothing ever happens. Every visionary needs a team of integrators in order for that vision to become reality. But you can choose when you're ready to use me as a partner, come back. But if you're not, then in the end, I'll just let you carry on failing. So you may think that's harsh, but that's actually what a pioneer wants to hear. If you share that boldly with them, they will want to hire you on the spot, because that's what they need. They know they need it, but they can't seem to find people who will stand up to them and be that direct in the beginning. I feel like I'm giving you business advice at the moment, Rach, so forgive me.
No, I mean, it might sound like business advice, but I mean, that's something that can transfer into any aspect of my life. You know what I mean? Just change a few of the words, and it's exactly the same thing with other personal relationships I've had. So,
and the thing for you, I'd say as well, is learn how to understand how a visionary thinks. So it's easier to understand the world through our lens. So you have a guardian pioneer, which is really quite useful, because guardian's the foundational voice, but you have the ability to understand the pioneering intent. But I would also do a little bit of study on really understanding what does the pioneer voice look for, and what are the things which for them are liberating. So there are probably some other sort of Yoda interviews where we've done Pioneer Connector or Pioneer Creative or Pioneer Guardian, actually understanding their world. So rather than always assuming they need to come to yours, learning how to understand their world and be prepared to come to them as well, that will massively increase your influence with pioneer characters and visionaries in your world. So I'm excited, Rachel. I hope this has been helpful.
Oh, it's been extremely helpful.
Well, I think that's probably, gosh, I'm looking at the time. We've probably overrun as always, but Rachel, thank you for being an amazing guest. I know there will be whole hosts of people who watch this and go, that sounds nothing like me. But I also know there'll be people who go, that really is me. What I want to celebrate about you, Rachel, is you are actually living out the way you were made to be at your best.
Yeah, so and that feels amazing to finally have in that spot.
And in a sense, some people will try and put you in boxes, and some people will tell you ought to tone it down a bit or whatever it is. But for the right people, the right partner, you will actually be an incredible asset to them. And I just want to cheer you on and go for it, but learn how to multiply your superpower, because you could easily end up with an agency of other integrators that you train who actually build something which is more scalable than just you being awesome in your own right. So thank you for being my guest today, Rachel. Thank you for being a great ambassador for Guardian Pioneers. And we'll see you next time on Personality Yoda.
Awesome. Thank you so much.